You have produced every band ever.
Yeah.
Now, that's figurative language, or is that literal?
No, that's literal. Yeah, it's just sort of a side project that I've just kept up.
You're listening to a conversation between Chris Dalton, drummer and heavy metal enthusiast, and Tamara Federici, producer of Every Band Ever, already in progress.
My cat goes nuts for this specific Kate Bush album. She will be almost asleep, and then when she hears the songs, she starts running around like a mad person. So I'm wondering, if secretly that was her, an underlying theme was cats go crazy, and I never knew it. You know,
That is possible, especially given the songs like "Get Out of My House," which is one of the songs that Jimmy Bain plays on.
I don't remember "Get Out of My House," unfortunately. I mean, I'm sure it was a great tune, but I don't remember. It must have been just a regular 9 to 5 day. Sometimes they kept Beatles hours. So I guess it wasn't remarkable in the recording process to me.
So no waking up at 6 p.m., a little coffee and a meal, and then start recording at 9 p.m. sessions that lasted until 6 a.m.
It got that way. It started off normal, and then like you do, the deadline comes up, and you push it, and you push it, and you push it, and then you just have to make do. Things get a little crazy. We ended up like hatching a flock of geese.
Now, what's fascinating to me and what I've brought up in conversations is that Mexican radio actually does make sense to open the record because the album's called Into the Pandemonium. You're
Mhm.
heading into this new world. And the Mexican radio, of course, is a radio station that is in Mexico, south of Los Angeles. And it's one that used to play lots of new wave and punk rock music. So that was sort of an into the pandemonium of non-top 40 or classic rock sounds at the time. So I always thought that it's also representative of a gateway into another world. So why not open your overall gateway into the other world, a horror world, with this microcosmic gateway into another world? And then the rest of the record just takes you from there. And it's also not that dissimilar from a Kate Bush album in the fact that it does just go everywhere. Now, there are a number of tracks on that record that stick close to the Celtic Frost sort of template. They're heavy, they're fast, they're grinding, but then there are the ones that sort of move way outside the lines that they're normally coloring in. So you have Mesmerized, which is the first track on the record where Tom uses his sort of moaning, sorrowful, melancholic voice. Was that another creative choice that as a producer you suggested he push into?
Yeah, I wanted him to have sort of a Robbie from The Cure sound, of just like gothic moaning, a little poppy, and then just like somebody who might be dying slowly, sort of a combination of those two.
Tom's
Um,
always dying slowly, like Robbie.
yeah, it was sort of, it's a little cat-like, it's a little animalistic, it's a little bit like, it's something might be decomposing. Um, you know, I don't know. It was just kind of a thing that he hit right away.
I get that completely. Another one of my favorite songs on the record that is sort of outside the realm of what Celtic Frost normally did is I Won't Dance, which ironically you can dance to. And I saw the band live in 1987 with Exodus. And that was the one song from the record that really stood out from their performance, other than the other classics that I recognized. Um, Tell me what the idea was behind that track, which is very driving rhythmically, and yet he doesn't want to dance. Do you know what is behind the philosophy of that track?
Yeah, this was. I suggested this. I thought the cover was going to be an Ella Fitzgerald, Louis Armstrong, um, cover of "I Won't Dance." So that's I won't dance. Don't ask me, right? And I was like, well, we can muddle it up, and call it Ella Fitzgerald and Louis Armstrong, and they hated that. They hated that idea. It was ham-fisted. They were right. But I still, they still wanted to do the song, and I was still excited that they wanted the title "I Won't Dance." I think it's really there's so many things that crack me up about this song. Like bark is spelled like baroque, and nobody can even see that. But he wrote it in there like that, and that is hilarious to me.
Fascinating. Can you tell me a little bit about some of the other hard rock and heavy metal projects that you've worked on? I'm familiar with many of the things that fall more in the pop realm, in the what we'll broadly call pitchfork media type bands, but I think it's the hard rock and heavy metal bands that are really interesting me the most.
Yeah, I worked with Ozzy Osbourne a long time ago, and something about him is that his actual name is Sezzy Sesborn. Uh, and you can tell that because on the early albums, there's, it actually has like that little lightning bolt through it. And it's people interpreted that to be an O, but originally it was a C. So he started out as Sezzy Sesborn, and then when the public took it as Ozzy Osbourne, he just went with it and thought, I'm not going to try and fight this. This is a pronunciation thing. And, I like O's as much as I like C's. So, we spent most of the time talking about that font and that album. And then he just kind of, winged it for most of that. So that was pretty easy on my part.
So from John to Sezzy, and eventually ending up on the Blizzard of Oz record as Ozzy Osbourne with that specific font.
Mm-hmm.
So Rex Array, which is essentially the final epic track on Into the Pandemonium, and it's just full blown with a German horn section with an opera singer. What can you tell us about that entire thing? The Frost had used strings and things like this on the previous album to Megatherion, but on this track specifically, they basically take those ideas they dabbled with and just completely went full tilt and pushed them to their limits.
Yeah, I'm so glad that you picked up on that. To me, this was their relatable stuff. Like this was death, love, a detractive sleep, an orgy of fear. Like this is their wheelhouse. There's the changing time signatures, and actually, a lot of this, as much as it's got this full sound, we actually paired away a lot of things. So that's what people don't realize is they think it's sort of like, uh, so much. But actually, stuff we left out of this was like a piano tie, a mockingbird fighting a toucan, SpaghettiOs, a live squirrel inside of a drum, a losing baseball team we had, and we let them go. It was too much. And you can't hear it, but there's actually a guy who shaved off his mustache while they were recording this just to get the extra sounds of just a little tiny bit of hair, leaving someone's face. That's the amount of layers that we're talking about here.
I can imagine it would be pretty hard to mic a situation like that. How did you and your engineers, how are they able to actually be in the right place at the right time with the right equipment to actually record such miraculous spontaneity?
Well, we taped them to children and to turtles. So we had the more specific directional mics on the children, and the children would walk around and get those sounds. And then the turtles were more of a broad sound, room tone, bigger, rounder sounds.
Omnidirectional turtles.
Thanks. Yes. Yeah. So I don't know why they haven't been used more now. I mean, they're very helpful. You get a different sound anywhere you are in the room, and you get sort of a consistent sound because they're not going to be moving that far.
So the very final track on Into the Pandemonium is Oriental Masquerade. Was it supposed to be an outro or a part of Rex Array, or was there a conscious decision to go ahead and make it a separate track?
Well, what happened was it got bigger. The song got much bigger than we were expecting. We thought that this might be somewhere in the middle of the album, but what happened was this is actually a high school marching band warming up. And there is actually, we called it a conjurer, and there's a spell that's happening and a curse being put on them as they're playing, and you can actually hear the curse unfolding in real time. Um, we were lucky; we were outside of the circle of that, and that just got a little out of control. But that's such a big thing, so you can't come back from cursing a marching band. So we sort of just had to end there because, uh, that's a really big statement. It was sort of a light Beetlejuice situation at first, and then a little overwhelming, and probably something people are still living with. So there was no other way to end the album. That had to be it. Where do we go from there?
God bless us, everyone. For updates, follow Every Band Ever on Instagram. Chris Dalton is still the drummer for New Light Choir, who are in the process of completing their next album, Stardust. Tamara Federici feels Santa Baby infantilizes a grown man who deals in toys on the regular. The editor is Will Velasquez. The audio engineer is Clark Jackson. Executive producers are Carl Adams and Tamara Federici. Thanks for listening. We hope your holiday is ever so festive and not at all